My name is Bob Nagle. I'm starting this quad beat channel with the hopes of sharing my experience, trying to get my message across about people living with bipolar disorder. The purpose of life is to find your purpose. This is my purpose. Florida, baby! March 1st, golden rays of sunshine, 70 degrees, be 80 most of the week. Our spring's here. So my sleep wasn't very really productive last night. All my life I count hours of sleep. I think I might have mentioned that. I don't know. And I find when I do that, it's disadvantageous, but it becomes more apparent I'm not sleeping. Unfortunately, I can't stop that. Wish I could. So that's how I start off each day, as I said. But what I want to talk about is my bipolar Wanderlust op-ed. And the first thing I mentioned there is ableism. And I mentioned how I would say it to friends. I would get everyone's a little bipolar sometimes, which is a little bit condescending. So it became apparent to me, like I said, these new people moved in. They were called the Bradys. They were from Chicago. And immediately they were supercilious, I'll put it that way, and which is fine because our newer neighbors tended to be that way. But at that point, I mentioned police reports like I was too vague or whatever. And then at that point, that was amongst a few neighbors, pernicious. And, pardon me. And so, they increased. And then there became acrimony over our yard. And it began with this. My mother had the final stages of dementia when they moved in, and we were caring for her at home. And, it was pretty tough, which fortunately you're in a neighborhood and you have to deal with that. And people up there were not considered of a senior citizen with dementia, which is conducive to their ponciness. So my mother's at home. And so, that goes and on, and my mom passed. And at that point, I was in a bad spot. And they were, these kids are fracas. The whole family was obstreperous. But that's prerogative in America, right? There's also another prerogative. My yard. This sounds cankerously curmudgeon or a crusty old man. Couple of them. But let me explain this to you. Prior to years ago, my son would have a wiffle ball league. They have a bunch of kids there, da. One kid got hurt. He ended up taking us to court. And as I know, and as I knew beforehand, and now I absolutely am cognizant of, there's a liability if someone's hurt in your yard. People say, I won't sue, Okay. So we told these kids, and boy, they were insolent, very insolent, impertinent. And we said that my wife said to the mother, she's a social worker, by the way, ServiceNet, said, could you stay out, please, even explain the situation. They just totally disregarded it. They are what they are. So what they did, they started tormenting me like my fellow neighbors on that street because I was different. Okay? I think that makes me unique, quite frankly, but unfortunately I was whatever I was on that specific street after 40 years that I lived there with neighbors that were friends of mine. They were good people that help each other out. And then these new people moved in, man. And it's America, I know, but this gentrification, it's horrible. It just blows whole communities away. But that's another spiel. So I got these reports on me, canards. And they would consist of, especially with these Bradys, she was inventive social worker, right? She would say I was walking down the street muttering. And fortunately, I was probably doing that, yeah, because it helps me self-talk. She was a social worker specializing in bipolar, calling the cops on me for that, among with other horrific things. But the most horrific thing is that we were selling our home. Once again, thank God it's sold. And we got out of there. And we had a spoof. I'm sitting there, there's cops at my door. They said somebody's overdosed on drugs in your house. And they said, well, we knew it was your house because there's only 6 houses on our street, Madison Avenue. And they said, well, there was a tarp on your front steps. Well, I hate to drone on about this, but we were having an open house that day. I was maintaining those steps because, it's kind of a money pit thing with those steps. And I had tarp over because it was going to rain. The only person that could have known me because I put that on early in the morning. You know me, early riser, baby. And so they said, well, the tarp obviously was in. Okay? So we tried explaining it to the cops. And the police up there, their comportment was supercilious. I've said that, but you know what I mean. Patronizing. And they would, as soon as my wife or son would say, he's bipolar, they'd give that look. Okay, all right. We know he's the antagonist and they're able-minded. And so whatever he says is wrong. Because, if they're asking me, man, I have trouble with this thought. And plus my heart gets going. You know what I mean? Why do people do this? Because I think because we're easy. Because I shouldn't say everybody else. I was an easy target, man. So that's what it was, right? And so, I hate to drone on about this, but this is salient, man. I never knew that ableism was like that. I went to an attorney, and she said, because they were taking me to court, it's ludicrous. But she said to me, she said to my wife, I don't want him to testify because he's a little, he's, and I would say, my wife would say, said to her, pardon me, said, we tell the police he's bipolar. She said, don't tell them that. They'll think you're crazy. Okay, that's your attorney too. Those thermometers are piling up there. But that's where I am. Now, I wanted to get that out. And that's what I mentioned in Bipolar Wanderlust. There's no rainbow into the rain.